We're talking about severe weather week this week. It's wrapping up. Today we're going back to 1998 and all those tornadoes.
Ed Russo is here to recap those disastrous twisters.
Severe weather season in Pennsylvania kicks into high gear during the spring months. There's an even more specific window of time that seems to be especially active for Pennsylvania, and that's late May into early June. PA's most notable severe weather episodes have occurred during this time.
Look at all the papers.
On May 31st, 1985, powerful tornadoes ripped across northern parts of the state. The family of tornadoes killed 64 people in Pennsylvania and injured 1,000 more. Exactly 13 years later, another tornado outbreak would tear across the state on May 31st, 1998, and then again 2 days later on June 2nd.
I was put on the radar shift for that week, and boy, that was some week. That was May 31st and June 2nd.
Mike D'Angelo and Barry Lambert, senior meteorologists at the National Weather Service in State College, were both working some long shifts during the 98 outbreak.
But Ed, with much more hair back then in 1998, surprisingly, we were sitting in the same spots relative to one another.
The first round on May 31st brought over 20 tornadoes to the state, including several strong F3s, which are very rare in PA. 2 days later, on June 2nd, another 20 tornadoes would touch down, causing more damage. D'Angelo and Lambert were both busy issuing dozens of tornado warnings.
I sat there and everything was spinning. Barry said everything was spinning.
The atmosphere incredibly ripe for severe thunderstorms.
And then they started breaking out like the measles or chicken pox out in the Susquehanna Valley. And I remember we had to have our attention focused on both areas. And till this day, I don't ever recall an event where your attention had to be all over the place for multiple storms.
Certain areas of the state hit harder than others, some locations getting hit twice.
In the 2 days of May 31st and June 2nd, 1998, 2 tornadoes crossed paths.
You heard that right. On May 31st, a strong F3 tornado ripped through southern Somerset County near Salisbury. The storm destroyed an Amish carpentry shop. The building was in the process of being immediately rebuilt, but then 2 days later, on June 2nd, another F2 tornado came along and destroyed the new frame. Later that evening, another strong tornado would drop in Somerset County, producing F3 damage. The tornado would move south into Maryland, where it became an F4. All in all, Pennsylvania saw around 40 tornadoes between May 31st and June 2nd, 1998, and 3 people lost their lives. Is Pennsylvania due for another major outbreak?
It could happen this year. It could happen not until 10 years from now.
Always be prepared for the unexpected.
Records were made to be broken. And when I look back at being a big basketball fan, I never thought I'd see anybody like Michael Jordan again. Then Kobe Bryant came along and I thought, boy, this guy's good.
136 years ago, a catastrophic disaster occurred when the South Fork Dam near Johnstown failed. The resulting flood, caused by heavy rains and a colossal engineering failure, killed 2,200 people in Johnstown. And the date that this occurred, May 31st, 1889. Like I said, a notorious date for bad weather in Pennsylvania. Ed Russo, CBS 21 News.
So this comes, obviously, well, maybe not you to know, but just days before the 40th anniversary of one of the worst tornado outbreaks to ever hit our state of Pennsylvania. Meteorologist Ed Russo has this story.
May 31st is a day that lives in infamy in Pennsylvania. And this May 31st will be the 40th anniversary of the worst tornado outbreak to ever hit the state. When you think of tornadoes, especially the violent ones, you think of them occurring in states like Texas, Oklahoma, Mississippi, or Alabama.
It's a tornado. Look at it. Get downstairs.
But you're looking at a violent tornado in an unlikely place, northern Pennsylvania. Ron Alfredo, the man taking the video, had no idea he was witnessing the most violent tornado to ever rip across PA. The F5 twister moved east through Mercer County, killing 18 people. The storm that produced that tornado was only just the start. That evening, in a span of 3 hours, 20 other tornadoes would wreak havoc across the state. Several of them were violent F3 and F4 tornadoes, turning small Pennsylvania towns into war zones. This same supercell that caused the F5 in Mercer County dropped another violent tornado north of State College.
Up there on Route 6, You come through this valley and it looks like a bomb hit it. It was a half-mile wide, and even that was 5 years later after the '85 outbreak. I drove through there in 1990, and every tree was flattened for a half mile.
The Moshannon State Forest tornado was so big, so massive, and so strong that the scarring on the earth can still be seen on satellite imagery to this day, 40 years later, after the '85 outbreak. So you see that faint line? That is the path of the F4 tornado. It began in Clearfield County, just north of Du Bois, and finally lifted 75 miles east in northern portions of Lycoming County after destroying nearly 90,000 trees. At times, the tornado was more than 2 miles wide, a size rivaling some of the biggest tornadoes observed across the Great Plains and Deep South. This photo is what radar imagery looked like back in 1985. This is the radar image of the powerful Moshannon tornado. Notice the obvious hook on the southwest side of the storm with a circular black area inside of it known as the debris ball. The debris ball is showing the stuff being lofted into the air by the tornado. Only the most powerful tornadoes have a debris ball that well defined. The 1985 tornado outbreak was the deadliest of the decade. 43 tornadoes touched down that day from southern Ontario south into Pennsylvania and Ohio. 21 of those tornadoes occurred in Pennsylvania. 89 people were killed that day, 64 of them in Pennsylvania alone. More than 1,000 were injured.
People who live in the mountains will say, "Oh, I'm protected from, a tornado here in the mountains." Not true. Not true at all. Some of the strongest tornadoes that we've had in Pennsylvania have just kept on going through the mountains.
The one big lesson that we've learned from a weather event like this is that when the right atmospheric conditions are present, tornadoes can occur anywhere, regardless of the terrain. Even violent tornadoes are possible, and as in the case here, across Pennsylvania's endless mountains. And yet, on May 31st, 13 years later, another tornado outbreak occurred across the state. Tomorrow, we're taking a look back at the destruction that occurred 27 years ago in 1998.
All right, I'm here with Tom.
Yeah, great stuff there from Ed, a lot of great research. But Jasmine, it really tells you a couple things, and they mentioned it there. People always think, well, you can't get an EF5 this far toward the East Coast. We proved that you can. It can't happen in Pennsylvania. That proves it can. And it can't happen in the mountains. That's one of those myths that people believe, right?
I know, that's scary stuff. Anything in there that you didn't know or that you're like, oh,
Ed pulled out that, he pulled up Google Earth, and you could see that scar from the forest there. You can still see it now if you go to your Google Earth and see that scar from an EF5.
Isn't that amazing?
That's incredible. Yeah, I didn't even realize that. So great reporting from Ed on there. Appreciate that.